Welcome back to the Tool Crib. Today we're going to be looking at the Victorinox SwissTool Spirit X. Now the Spirit X is probably one of the more popular multi-tools from Victorinox, and it's going to fall in that standard duty multi-tool frame size. So it's a little over 4 inches, whereas that's where most of your standard duty multi-tools will fall in that range, about 4 inches. It's a little bit longer than that, but still in the standard duty category. Now the SwissTool Spirit X packs a lot of punch. It has 26 different functions in its tool set. That's going to give it some advantages over some of its competition, like the Leatherman Wave or Charge series, or the Free series, or in some respects the Rebar as well. There's also some disadvantages. So while it has more functionality, it loses some of its functions, or there's other multi-tools that do things a little bit better than it, and then there's things that this one does better than the competition. And we're going to try to highlight and give you a good balance of that, what the attributes and what are some of the disadvantages to the Spirit X. We're going to start off with the specifications first, then we're going to get into those 26 functions. I'm going to show you some of the accessories that are available for the Spirit X as well, and then we're going to talk about what I feel are the attributes and some of the disadvantages, and whether or not this multi-tool is the right one for you. Let's get started. Now the price for the Spirit X is going to run right at around $105 is what it retails for. So that's one of the reasons why I think it favors really well against the Wave, because they're right in that same price range. Now overall, the weight on the Spirit X is pretty lightweight when you consider all the tools and the functionality that it has. So it comes in at 7.4 ounces, or about 209 grams. Now the overall length in its closed position is going to be 4 3/16 of an inch, or about 106 millimeters. Its overall width in its closed position is going to be 1 5/16 of an inch, or about 33 millimeters. And the thickness or the depth of it is going to be 9/16 of an inch, or 5/8 of an inch, or about 16 millimeters. And that's measuring to the outside of the tool releases on this multi-tool. Well, let's get into the tool set and show you what it's all about. So before I get too far into the tools, one of the things that I want to talk about first, and one of the distinguishing factors of the Spirit line, is the fact that it comes with these curved or radius handles. And those are important, and they should not be overlooked. Now, if you've ever used a Wave or Charge for any length of time, and you are gripping on to something with the pliers, and for some reason it happens to slip off, so we have it in this position, and we're gripping down on it, what will happen is the meat of your hand can get trapped between the blade and the saw, or between the blade and the file if it slips off. And it only needs to happen once, and you will never forget it. So when I'm using a Wave or Charge series, I make a conscious effort when I am gripping onto something very hard that I grab it a little lower so that doesn't happen. Well, the Spirit X, it eliminates that problem, because with these curved handles, you never run the risk of pinching your hand in, and it feels really good in the hand too. The radius edge of those handles really make it a comfortable grip. Now, let's get into the tools. The first thing we're going to look at are the pliers, and just for comparison, let's bring the Wave Plus back in here real quick. So the Wave Plus comes down to a very nice needle nose. Now the Victorinox Spirit X has what I like to call a hybrid plier. It's not quite needle nose, and it's not quite blunt nose, but it is a good compromise between. And I don't really have a problem with that. Sometimes I like a little, a really sharp point needle nose. There's certain applications where that will come in handy. But in a multi-tool, I think it's okay. And I like this plier design, I do. One of the things that I don't like about it, well, I'll tell you what, let's go a little further. The teeth pattern on the needle nose is really fine, really grippy. And then it has a very nice main plier. I really like the main pliers on it. And one thing I need to point out, my SwissTool Spirit, this is my XC and this is my X. Now SwissTool tools are really super easy to open. They have very good action pliers. They really do. But for some reason, my Spirit X got through QC, and it is a little harder to open. Harder is the wrong word, because it's really easy to open still. It's just not as easy as what you should be accustomed to from a Victorinox multi-tool, because they really do their pliers really well. So while mine doesn't open quite as smoothly, and I'm thinking about sending it back for that reason to get it replaced or get it repaired, if you are looking at the Spirit series, just know that if it is sent out correctly, then those pliers are going to be extremely smooth action. Now, what I don't like about the pliers is the fact that it has that, you can see in the needle, or excuse me, in the cutters, has the hardwire cutters on the bottom, and then it has the softwire cutters up above that. The fact that it doesn't have replaceable 154 CEM like you're going to find in most leather and multi-tools is not a huge detractor for me. And I realize that's a very popular option, but unless you're really just abusing your cutters, you should never ever damage these cutters at all. What I don't like about it is that second notch, though. I would prefer that be straight, give you a long straight line for your soft wire cutting, instead of having that secondary notch in there. Something I don't like about the SwissTool as well, the larger version of this multi-tool. But the pliers on the whole are very good, and I really don't have much in the way of bad things to say about it, except for that second notch. I don't care for it. I just wish they would change that, is all. Well, let's get it closed up, and then we're going to go to the outside and start looking at all the outside accessible tools. Now, the first tool that we're going to be looking at on the outside, and by the way, the fact that actually all the Victorinox tool line, from their Spirit series and their larger series, one of the things that I really like about them a lot is the fact that they have all outside accessible tools. While I use the Surge, and I don't mind opening up to get to some of the interior tools, the fact that all the tools are outside accessible, that can be a big benefit to a lot of people. I don't mind going searching for some of my tools that are on the interior of the handle, and the reason that I don't in the Surge is because of the way the handle is designed. It's actually a stronger handle than what you're going to get in like the SwissTool or the Spirit series. So that is one of the reasons why I don't mind searching for some of those interior tools. Now, the knife blade on the Spirit X is a little shorter than what I like. So it measures in at 2 1/4 inches, or about 57 millimeters. Now, on standard duty and larger multi-tools, I like to see a blade that's at least 2.5 inches, and prefer it to be closer to 3 inches. Now, it's a very good blade. I'm not trying to discredit the blade, and it comes out extremely sharp. I just wish it was a little bit longer, especially because this is a little longer frame multi-tool. It's a little short for my liking, but it is a decent blade. Now, it's going to be in that same pin blade style that you're going to find in most of the Victorinox knives. It's not a carbon copy, but it's very close in design. Now, one of the attributes to the Victorinox series of multi-tools is the fact that they use a lot more chromium in their stainless mix for their stainless steel. So that's what gives the Victorinox tools their higher luster. Now, where that's beneficial is if you're working in or around water. So if you're working off a boat or on a dock, or if you're even working in a very high humidity area, then the Victorinox are going to be a lot more rust resistant than what you're going to find in Wave or Charge or Free or any number of other multi-tools, including Gerber and not necessarily SOG, because SOG uses, in a lot of their multi-tools, they use a pretty high chromium content as well. Some of them do, some of them don't. So that's one of the benefits. Now, one of the downsides is that for the blade steel, it's a lot softer blade steel than even a 428C that you're going to find in a Wave Plus. The benefit is that you can sharpen this up a lot easier, even than the 428C, which is not hard to sharpen at all. But when you get into like the Charge or the Charge Plus or the Charge Plus TTI, which have better blade steels, then I think that the SwissTool Spirit is kind of at a disadvantage when it comes to the knife blade steel. That's one of the things that I actually like better about Leatherman as opposed to Victorinox, and that's their main blade. Now, if we get to the next tool, this is one of my favorites. This is a 7mm chisel. You can see it has that chisel scraper up front. That is a tool that you do not find in a lot of other multi-tools, and it's something that I really, really, really like. Now, they have another cut edge here on the corner. Some people call that a package opener, and it can be used as a box cutter. It works very well for that, but it's actually for cutting cable sheathing for the launch. So if you're working with larger insulated cable, then you're able to cut it around with the horizontal cutter here, and then you can cut the length of it to split that insulation in half. So instead of using your knife blade, it's basically a draw cutter, but it does work well as a little package opener as well for getting through hard clamshell plastic packaging. Also has the horizontal cutter, which I mentioned, and then it has the wire stripper. Now, the wire stripper functionality on this is something that I don't care for, and the reason that I don't is because I like to have the ability to, well, let's just look at the wave real quick. I like to have the ability to trap the wire between the frame of the multi-tool and the cutter, and in the Wave and the Surge Charge series, they allow me to do that, where I can close it up and then I can strip around the insulation, pull it off. Because otherwise you're trying to rotate the wire inside that cutter, and it's just, you just can't, it just doesn't work well at all. It just doesn't work well at all. You're better off using the knife blade than trying to use a cutter in that fashion. Well, that's kind of how I feel about this cutter. Doesn't really allow me to really get down on it because the angle is just wrong. I can't really push it against there because the wire will just slip out. So while it's listed as a function, that's probably one of the things on this particular implement that I don't care for, and that's the wire stripping functionality. Now the next tool over, let's see, got it from the wrong side here. Here we go. Is a combination tool. That is going to be our flat driver, and this is 8mm, and then it has a very good can opener, or excuse me, bottle cap lifter. It's really kind of wide there, and so it really works well. It really grips onto those bottle caps and pops it right off. Now, another tool that they have, or another function that they have, is this little notch here, and that is called a wire bender. Honestly, I don't know of an instance that I would ever use that, and I don't really know how to implement that well to use it correctly, because if I'm going to bend wire, I just think it's more advantageous to just bend it with pliers, because I can do it a lot faster. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's other people out there that do utilize that function, and if you do, you know, please comment and let me know how it works out for you. The next tool over is going to be the reamer. What do they call it? They call it a reamer punch is what I think they call it. Well, here we call it an awl, a reamer awl. So it has a very nice point on it and has reaming functionality as well. This is very, very sharp, and it works exceptionally well as a reamer and an awl. It doesn't have a sewing eyelet for those that would utilize that. And in the case of this tool, I think it could benefit from that. Of course, they don't have a lot of real estate there to put a sewing eyelet in there because it would weaken the tip of the tool. And it really doesn't affect me because I don't really use that function. But I will say that the reamer and the awl punch functionality works extremely well. Now, they do have an interesting tool. This is the little hook portion here is, what do they call that? I think they used to call it, in their knives, they call it an all-purpose hook. It might be called the same in this one as well. I don't really remember. But what Victorinox did, because they've been around for over 100 years. So used to be your packages would come like, let's say a bundle of newspapers would come with this twine that was wrapped around it, and boxes too. And so you were able to grip it with the knives, and then the knives actually, they sit horizontal to the tool like that. So you're able to grab it and then have a good handle to carry it with. Now I could envision circumstances where that could come in handy. It's not one of those tools that I think that you're going to use very often, but it could come in quite handy, and so it is incorporated into the awl on this one. Now the next tool over is going to be the saw. Now the saw is a little thinner in profile than some other multi-tools you're going to find, but it is a very, very, very good saw. Victorinox makes very good saws. Now, when comparing it to the Charge and Wave series, I actually feel that the Wave Charge series is just a touch better, because I feel like it cuts a little bit better in both push and pull stroke than it does with the Victorinox. Now that's subjective, and I know that there's probably a lot of people that feel exactly the opposite, but from my experience, the Wave Charge has a little bit better of a saw. Now that is in no way trying to say that this saw is bad, because it is not. It is a very, very, very good saw. Now if we get flipped around to the opposite side, we'll start off with the file. Now much like the saw blade, the file is a little thinner in profile here than what you're going to find in some other multi-tools, but it does have a very aggressive pattern. So it has your single cut, your cross cut, and then here on the edge it has where most multi-tools are going to be an edge file. This one is actually a metal saw. It has a very aggressive cut pattern here. So you can actually, and I have done it, not with this one, but with a Swiss tool, I have actually cut through 1/4 inch solid round stock, and in pretty decent amount of time. It didn't take much at all. So it does work very well as a metal saw. And the pattern on the file is very, very aggressive, very good. It makes a great file. Next tool over is going to be a combination tool that we see on a lot of Victorinox products, and that is going to be their this is the 4mm screwdriver, and then the Victorinox style can opener. Now personally, I actually prefer the can opener style on the Leatherman, that eagle claw, than I do this one, but this style has been around for a long time, and it does work very, very well as a can opener as well. And then the next tool over is going to be our Phillips driver. So this is a combination number 1, number 2 Phillips. Really works pretty decently. The only thing that I wish that they would do is I wish that they would put a little, maybe like a black oxide coating on the end of this driver to make it a little more grippy. But it offers a decent amount of reach, and it works very well. So they really can't complain about it. I just wish it had a little bit more grip instead of that high polish for a screwdriver. Then the next tool over is going to be our 2mm flat driver. And then the last tool over is one of the most important on the Spirit series, and that is going to be the scissors. Now, unlike, let me see if I have it here. Yes, I have the SwissTool CS, and we're going to bring it in here for comparison real quick. So, unlike most Victorinoxes where they incorporate that little spring and allows that scissor to open up really wide, and very, very good scissors on the CS, by the way, this one uses a tension bar. And while these are very good scissors and they cut extremely well, very, very sharp, the tension bar here does not allow those scissors to open up as fully as what you're going to find on other multi-tools. Now, I'm in no way trying to say that they're bad scissors. I just wish that they opened up a little larger, because it's difficult to get some of your larger stuff in those scissors. because it just doesn't open up far enough, is what it boils down to. Now, if we look at some of the, we highlighted the curved surfaces for these handles, which the ergonomics on these, first of all, in the plier position, or in the open position, using them as pliers, they are very, very comfortable, and they don't have any hot spots on the outside. Huge benefit. Now, when you got it opened up the other way, and let's just say, for an example, we're using our knife blade, the way the handle curves, it really lets you get a good purchase on it, and it doesn't have any hot spots on the outside either, or very, very minimal, and so you're able to get a really good grip on this multi-tool in whichever fashion that you decide to use it. Another benefit, some of the engineering behind the Victorinox, is the way they incorporate their springs or their lockback mechanisms. So you can see the fine laser cuts between each one of those. And what that allows them to do is minimize the pressure on each of the tools. And you'll notice that as I open up a tool, only the spring that holds that particular tool back will move. And so the rest of them stay flat, and that's what allows you to individually pull out each tool by itself without having the other tools come out with it. To some people, that is a huge thing. To me, it's nice. It's not a deal breaker either way, because I think it's one of those things that you can get accustomed to with whatever multi-tool you're using. Some people like to have them fan out, pick what they want, and close them back up. They don't want to search around for it. I personally think that once you get accustomed to, if you do use the Spirit X or any of the other Victorinox models, then once you're accustomed to that multi-tool, that's really not an issue, and a lot of people feel that it's a benefit, which I couldn't disagree with either. Now let's talk about a couple of accessories that you can get with the Spirit X. Now, one of the downsides to this is that the Spirit X is not available in a plus version. And what a plus version is it will include these tools as accessories and a larger pouch to hold everything. So you have to get the Spirit X by itself and then get these accessories individually. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the sheath. The sheath on the one I got the leather sheath for my Spirit X. And these are very high quality leather sheaths. Very, very nice. Nice big rivets on the back. I love the stitching. The only thing that I don't like about the sheath is the fact that it has the Velcro closure. I wish they either had a snap closure or even a magnetic closure, and I would have liked it a lot more. Now, if you get a larger set, or if you get the accessories with it, you're going to need a larger sheath. Now, this is the one that I have for my XC Plus, and this one I got in nylon. So you can actually get the smaller sheath in nylon and leather, and you can get this one in nylon and leather. I just happen to get nylon for mine. It's going to have the same Velcro enclosure, but it's going to allow you to fit all of your accessories into there, plus the multi-tool. But this comes in a plus version, and you'll have to order this separately if you want to carry the Spirit X. Now, with the accessories, you can get it in two different versions. So this is what would come with the plus version. It's going to have the wrench double-ended, and then 6 bits, and then it's going to incorporate your corkscrew and then your little micro driver like they put in their knives. And then that corkscrew will actually fit into the frame here, if I can get it in there, slides right in, and now you have a corkscrew on your multi-tool that you're able to twist in there and pop those wine bottle corks out. Not something I use. I don't drink wine. My wife does, though, and she told me one of these days we're going to have to try it out, so one of these days. There's also a different set that you can get. Now, I don't have the ratchet set, but you can get the same bit kit plus the corkscrew mini driver, but instead of having this wrench, it'll have a 1/4 inch ratchet plus a little smaller extension. Now, to some people, it might be an advantage to be able to utilize this set separately of your multi-tool, I prefer actually to have it incorporated into the multi-tool. And what I mean by that is I like to be able to set an adapter onto my multi-tool, which basically gives you a larger handle, a better purchase on whatever you're trying to break free, whatever nut or fastener. And with this one, because it's independent accessory, a benefit to that is you could use it with other multi-tools if you choose to. But I think it's more of a preference thing. So to some people that might be an advantage, to others it might be a slight disadvantage. To me it's a slight disadvantage, but to each their own, right? Well, let's recap a little bit. We're going to talk about some of the advantages and some of maybe disadvantages to this multi-tool. First, the advantages. The smooth action of the pliers is one of those things that Victorinox does so well, and I really love how smooth the pliers open and close. If you're accustomed to spring-loaded pliers, you'll never miss them with this multi-tool. The chisel is another one of those tools that is just so useful, and I wish it was on more multi-tools, and Victorinox does it extremely well. The ergonomics, the fact that it has these curved handles both in the closed and open position, really allows you to get a good purchase, and it feels comfortable and solid in your hand. It really does. The fact that it has all outside accessible tools is another big advantage for a lot of people. For me personally, I'm okay with some of the tools being on the interior, like in the Wave and the Surge. That's going to be more personal preference, as a lot of these things are. But that's one of the reasons why a lot of people gravitate towards the new Free Series from Leatherman, because it also has all outside accessible tools. The high luster and the rust resistance is a huge thing for a lot of people, and understandably so. So if you're working in high humidity areas, that could be the selling point for you. It's lightweight when you consider the tool set that it has, all the capability that it has, and then it's an ounce lighter than that of a Wave or a Charge. That can be a big advantage for a lot of people as well. Now, some of the disadvantages. The wire stripping functionality for me is pretty much useless on this multi-tool, and you'd be better off, in my opinion, using a knife blade. The cutters, if it didn't have that second notch for the soft wire cutters, the pliers would be ideal for me. But the fact that it has that second notch, kind of, it's really like a sore thumb, I guess. I just don't like it. I just don't. The scissors, while the scissors are exceptional scissors, very sharp and very good, they just don't open up quite enough. The fact that it doesn't have a bit adapter, or the ability to incorporate a bit adapter onto the multi-tool, for some people, not going to make a difference. For me, because in the way and fashion I use my multi-tools, I prefer that. The fact that it doesn't have a serrated blade, which is an implement that I use a lot. Now, you can overcome that by using the XC as opposed to the Spirit X, but then you have to carry a separate folder for your main blade. A lot of people do anyway, and so that may be a reason to look at the XE instead of the Spirit X, and maybe that's not a disadvantage for you at all. The pocket clip, the inability to put a pocket clip on it, because this is such a slim, lightweight carry multi-tool with great functionality, but the fact that it doesn't have a pocket clip, a lot of people like to carry their multi-tool in that fashion. To me, that's not something that affects me, because I actually use bigger multi-tools, and I would never pocket carry them anyway. I always sheath carry. But for a lot of people, the fact that it doesn't have the ability to put a pocket clip could be a disadvantage. The biggest determining factor for me, though, is the fact that it does not have one-handed outside accessible blade like you're going to find in a Wave and Charge. That is probably that's probably the biggest reason why I lean towards the Wave Charge series as opposed to the SwissTool Spirit series, is because the fact that while it's easy to open, it is not one-hand accessible. So, it's all subjective, and maybe that is not quite as important to you as it is to me. But for me, that is the determining factor. I love the tool set that's within it. I wish I could change a couple of things, tweak it just a little bit, but I think the outside blade, one-handed opening blades, are what does it for me and why I lean towards the Wave Charge series. Well, those are some of the advantages and disadvantages as I see them. Now, on the whole, this is what I consider an A-grade multi-tool, and I don't want to leave you with the impression that I don't think it is. I think it's an outstanding multi-tool. The design, the ergonomics, the engineering behind this multi-tool, and its tool set, its capabilities, are just outstanding. They really are. There are a couple things that I mentioned that I would like to see differently, but on the whole, it is definitely an awesome multi-tool, and it's one that you really couldn't go wrong with it. If it fits your needs best, I would never ever mock somebody for carrying a Victorinox, because they do make exceptional knives and multi-tools, multi-knives and plier-based multi-tools. Well, this has been my review of the Victorinox SwissTool Spirit X. If this has been helpful for you, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.